nombre, señor. Me llamo Motecuzoma Sanchez. I'm a third-generation Mexican-American. I'm the grandson of Atilano Sanchez, Maria Madrigal, who came here in 1917 during the Mexican Revolution. And one of their driving forces why they came here was for economic, not only for violence, but for economic reasons. There was not very many well-paying jobs in Mexico at the time. They were recruited by U.S. railroad companies, so they came north to work on the railroads. So it seems like there's a parallel. I know you mentioned earlier that the fighting going on now in Mexico really has no economic ties, but I think if we look at some of the small pueblos that are kind of involved with the drug trade, many of their economies revolve around the production of things like marijuana, cocaine, and so I see a parallel with their economic motive for wanting to be involved in this drug trade. And it seems to me with the economy during the Mexican Revolution, 90% was of U.S. economy was owned by United States and English companies. And it seems today there's also economic problem. How can the government of Mexico justify its participation in NAFTA, which is decimating the rural communities in Mexico, driving people north to follow the capital and the jobs that come north to U.S. corporations?
Well, you mentioned several problems in your question and your comment. To some I agree, to some I don't. I know that there are many small towns in Mexico that seem to be blossoming around drug traffic. But I think that it is extremely difficult to figure out how much investment and how much integration with the global economy we are losing because of the prevalence of drug trafficking related activities in states like Sinaloa. Sinaloa, for example, I mentioned Sinaloa because it was presented as an example in the previous question, is one of the richest states of Mexico in terms of agricultural production. It complements the agricultural cycle, particularly of the east states of the United States. It competes with agricultural production here in California. And in my opinion, it is clearly, Sinaloa has been paying a high price for its image and its violence, and has not developed its full potential because of what's happening to the state, and because of the efforts by the cartels to gain control of certain territory. I think that in the end, most Mexicans will tell you that they don't need that money. They don't need drug trafficking. They are not interested or willing to get involved in those activities. I think that most people in Mexico are Pacific. Mexico is one of the nations that has almost no violence in terms of religious or ethnic conflict in our territory. There is no separatist movement. There has never been in our history, or almost never been in our history. And our social coexistence has been very pacific. Mexicans do not kill each other. Beyond the revolution, the 100 years that we are celebrating now, beyond the event that brought your parents here, there has not been any other instance such as that in which Mexicans kill each other for their political beliefs or religious beliefs beyond the Cristero War. So I think that it is pretty clear that in Mexico, today at least, there is a strong support in public opinion for the direct confrontation against drug traffickers. And there is, and perhaps that implies your question, and I agree with that, and there is a recognition that we adopted a vis-a-vis a series of processes that are not new, that have been developing in Mexico for the last 20 years, and that, like Krause said, became much more visible the moment that the centralization of power as a result of an unintended consequences of democracy took place in Mexico. Because then local authorities and local forces did not have the resources, the training, the infrastructure to confront local cartels that were no longer simply carrying drugs from Central America or from South America to the United States, but also were trying to promote consumption in Mexico and for that purpose to gain territory. So we didn't react on time when we discovered that drug traffickers had penetrated structures of power, political and economic power in Mexico, and security forces at the local level was, I would say, too late, and it has become much more expensive because of that de facto tolerance that as a country have with drug trafficking for many years. But that does not mean that those little towns and the vast majority of the people are willing to accept this cancer in exchange of the money